Hi, I'm Britton LaRue, and this is Moon to Moon. Moon to Moon is a space to consider, celebrate, and share the ways we come home to ourselves, anchor through change, and uncover our power. 1 month, one phase, one loving step at a time. Hello, Moon to Moon. It's Britton here. I'm very excited to share what wants to come through for this episode. I have little keywords scribbled all over my notes, but I don't know the order they're going to come through. But wow, there's a lot of information that wants to be shared and spoken to on the theme of this episode, which is the vulnerability of mentorship. And all the things that I have been learning about this, from holding the mentorship frequency for myself, from trusting mentorship from others, and from witnessing many wise, really beautiful human beings go through the process of being in mentorship with me and giving them space to be in that process. So there's a lot that wants to come through here. A lot of what this is inspired by is the Mystics Making Money first workshop, which was fucking fantastic. That was last week. The replay will be available as long as I'm doing this series, and I'm doing it for at least 2 years. So come and get it. I mean, I don't know that I've ever received so many unsolicited testimonials. Thank y'all. It has a big impact experience. I was so turned on by promoting it, and I was so fulfilled, really fulfilled in the experience of executing it. Fulfillment is a powerful frequency. You can let that word land in your body. What does it feel like to be fulfilled? How will you know when you are fulfilled? How do you know when you aren't fulfilled? What are the characteristics of not being fulfilled versus being fulfilled? Fulfillment to me is one of the really, truly great feelings that there is. And I would say that that's a Saturn-Venus partnership experience, where what feels good because of how you showed up to it. Whoa, that feels really good. When what feels good because of how you showed up to it. Yeah. So in that space, we talked about some really powerful things as related to the very messy business of being in contract with other human beings, especially where money is involved or where the hope for money is involved. It's messy in the way Libra is messy, because Libra teaches us that we are always, and at some level, in a process of trying to regulate and find equilibrium in states of disequilibrium, you know? And that's what it is to be in contract with other human beings, because we can't control everything when we make contracts. There are other human beings involved. And so it's like a responsive practice, like a responsiveness practice, and which is constantly attuning to, you know, what we want to have in an inner way as it connects to like a spine sense of self, sort of truth and self. And as we're also aware that there's another human being involved here and they're having their own experience, and to what degree are we responsible for their experience? There's a lot there. Oh my gosh, we covered so much. And we talked about the power of boundaries for creating your own containment. This is a fun word that came up as a support word and as an additional word, or even an alternative word to boundaries in today's Magician's Table Elemental Meetup. This year I've been hosting different meetups on the elements, and I've never done that before for Magician's Table, and it's been really so incredible to be in contemplation with the very wise human beings who've gathered there. So yeah, it feels like part of how we come into equilibrium in these contracts is from being really clear about our own containment, what we're not agreeing to, what is not in affinity with us, what we are not responsible for. Also known as boundaries, in these contracts. And then finally we dropped into pricing and money and all the various things that can come up with that, which can make creating offers feel like such a heavy, difficult, painful experience. Often so much that we freeze or feel like we're collapsing under all that we take on in doing that. So, as I like to, we went really deep. And then now I'm in an Underdog to Diva promo. So Underdog to Diva in many ways is like the same promo conversation as Mystics Making Money conversation, like the kinds of things we're talking about. We're talking about how the mystical pathway is very much the entrepreneurial pathway. It's a pathway of risk. It's a path into the unknown. It's a path without all the guarantees. It's a path of bravery. And so it's also a leadership pathway. It's a leadership pathway because we're the ones being willing to follow a vision where nobody's really guiding us. Like, we're guiding with our own lanterns. Our own knowing is taking us to these places. It's very Eight of Cups. It's also an erotic pathway, because how do we know? How do we know what's the most emergent truth here? How do we know where we're being guided? How do we know? A lot of that is coming from a deep yes and a deep no place inside of ourselves, supported by this kind of like Mars-Venus aspect of self that helps us know that like this information from the body is my compass that's helping me understand where I'm being led. And so fun. The conversations around Underdog to Diva, promo-wise, are very similar, but the frequency and the structure of Underdog to Diva is very different than Mystics Making Money, because Mystics Making Money is more of a classroom, like a gathering learning space, where my role there is to transmit, it's to communicate the resources of all my contemplations around this. Like, I'm sharing in powerful language how this is all feeling to me, how it's been looking to me, what's been feeling helpful, what does not feel helpful, and practices that you can give yourself to fortify within yourself, that Saturnian piece where you fortify within yourself. And that fortification of being the one that's holding the space for yourself is how you bring yourself into a path of integrity. And we talked a lot about integrity and mystics making money. And I talked about how, for me, I know that money is really fun. It is. Money is really great and really fun. I love money. And none of it means anything without integrity. Like, money has been the field in which I've learned how to become a person of integrity, because being in the field of money in the marketplace has been a constant reckoning with myself to understand what integrity is going to mean for me. What are my values? What are my principles? What do I just know for myself? And then showing up to it. Yeah, I'm like, wait, what was I saying? It's an integrity walk. Yes, and we were talking about that. The transmission. Mystics making money is a transmission. Okay, we're here together. Here we are. So for like this particular price, for this exchange, you receive my transmission. You are receiving like a lot of information. You're receiving the frequency of my presence. You're receiving this expansion field. You're receiving these practices that you can give yourself. You're receiving the company of those who also signed up and who asked really amazing questions and made really brilliant points that I repeat into the space. And then that's it. Like, the contract is complete. I'm giving it to you, and now it's up to you to do anything with that, to let it come into you through your many bodies, your mental body, your emotional body, your spirit body, your somatic body, inviting you to be the one who is organizing your own receptivity. And as that toggles through you, you're also like your own colander, right? Your own filter, using your own filters for like, that is a Brit and LaRue thing that's not in affinity with me. And this is a thing that I really resonate with. So it feels like a me thing too, you know, and you're in charge of your own filtration process. And I'm wishing you all the best. And maybe we'll never see each other again, you know? Like, that's not a mentorship space. It is in the sense of like, I'm counseling all y'all about my own personal take on these things. And that's it, you know? So Underdog to Diva is a mentorship space. And the theme here today is about the vulnerability of mentorship. Because mentorship is going to be bringing us into witnessing. Mentorship, whether we're talking group mentorship, like Underdog to Diva, or one-on-one mentorship, like my witch sister container. Mentorship is way more vulnerable. And that's part of what I really want to get into here today, because mentorship is when we go into deeper relationship. Like, it starts to be more 8th house feeling, because we're in that vulnerability of like, I'm receiving a whole lot more from you, say, the participant, in terms of the money that you're giving me. You're investing in this container. My school is receiving what you're putting into it. My school is receiving it. I'm receiving it. That's vulnerable. And then there's the vulnerability of being together for 6 months in this case. For both cases, both my group and my one-on-one are 6 months. You can keep going and stay with a mentorship space, but the contract is 6 months. And in this space, there is this opportunity for mentorship. So I want to speak to this because mentorship means a lot of different things. And I want to share with you what I think it means and why I think it's so powerful. So we're in the space when we go into talking about mentorship of authority. Like, who's the authority in the room? That can have a lot of like energetic stuff that sticks to it. Because depending on your history, depending on the meaning that you make around authority, we may have different opinions in the room, you know? We may be not even coming to it with the same agreements and the same expectations and biases, you know? It's vulnerable to be in mentorship, especially if you have felt like authority spaces where somebody's like who is an expert and they know more. If you know those spaces to be hierarchical in a way that feels disempowering or shaming or like funky in terms of the relationships that get created between peers vis-a-vis the preferences of the authority, where you could feel like you shared yourself and the authority in the room dismissed your knowing, second-guessed your knowing, was judging what you were bringing to the space, dismissed you. In other ways, just like where you didn't feel valued or you didn't feel empowered or you didn't feel seen. Most of us have had experiences like this. Even if you had the archetype of like teacher's pet, like that's intense, you know, like just because you were on their quote unquote good side, that came with at least as much baggage for you energetically in the contract, where now you're in a situation where you have to maintain safety by agreeing with the authority, by following through with their suggestions. We can think of all kinds of examples. So, depending on your history of how you felt with mentors, there can be pain there. There can also be like a history of having pedestalized an authority. Maybe you didn't know you were pedestalizing them, like your younger self thought that mentor could do no wrong. And you just like really adored them. But then you found out that they are a human being and they may have hurt you, broken your heart, really disappointed you. And then you're left with this grief and not really knowing how to repair, where to go next. Like, was it all shit actually? Like, what of that experience is worth holding dearly? And what is it all just pain now? You know, like that can be so real. Oh my gosh. And then the shame that can come on after that of feeling like, how could I not have seen this? How could I have let myself become so invested in that person? We humans, you know? So I'm very aware of this. as I invite human beings into mentorship with me. And also, like, I've learned over the years, like, the fact of the matter is, anytime we're in contract with other human beings, there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be errors. There's going to be miscommunication. There's going to be regret. There's going to be, I really wish I hadn't have said that. I really wish I had responded differently. There's going to be a sense of times where you're like, I didn't hold my boundary and now look what's happened. Like, this is part of being social beings, being relational, and we are in repair. We are in the dream of being relational beings differently, being humans in reciprocity differently. And this is my dream. And this is why I'm like walking into this very high sensation topic of money and exchanging and being in the marketplace and how to navigate that, because it seems like kind of we got to go through this, you know? And what can we build up as language, as practice, as framework? What kinds of spaces can we build together to practice doing this, knowing that we will not be able to get out of this with everyone being 100% happy in every single moment about how everyone acted, you know, how everyone responded. Knowing that people have a lot going on in their fields, and whatever they're bringing to the room may have nothing to do with what's in the room, but it may be there and we don't even understand why it's there. Like, we're human beings learning how to hold our own space and hold our own emotions and hold how we transmit those emotions into spaces energetically. This is all of what I care about, and all the things that my containers are designed to help us get more skilled inside, which isn't to say that because I'm the steward and the holder, I'm not also learning, right? Like, if we hold our teachers and our mentors to such authority and such like a pedestal that they can never, ever make a mistake, we'll also hold that standard for ourselves, and then we won't show up. You know, we won't take opportunities to be a leader, take opportunities to hold like the hot seat of authority, so to speak, to take on and participate in the world, knowing that like I have a lot of wisdom to share. People who come to my spaces have a lot of wisdom. Maybe you noticed. For any of y'all who've come into my containers, you know that there are some wise people who come to these rooms, you know, really wise human beings. And part of what mentors do, in my opinion, is they share that. To me, I feel really weepy right now. Like, if you can feel the frequency of like that dream of like, that's what mentors do, is they share their wisdom generously with those who come to be in that relationship with them. Like, ooh, that feels like, yeah, it feels like collectively, like there's just like a dream for that, you know, a real desire to trust in that vision of a culture, you know, and a vision of a community where wisdom is freely shared with those who come into those relationships. And scarcity is one of the things that really holds us back as well, you know, that leads to like withholding and a hardening around sharing ourselves. So there's this kind of trust that I feel like at a soul level we want to have, that we can trust in the generosity of mentorship, and that it feels really good to share wisdom. It feels really good to receive wisdom from another human being. Like, wow, It's not that's the problem. A lot of the problem is when both the mentor or the mentee are not fully clear in their power about really sitting in that authority, sitting in their own power, in the containment of their own power, with respect for their own power and respect for the power and containment of the other, allowing everyone to stay sovereign and free to do whatever they want with what has been shared, Like, now I don't mean do whatever you want, like take someone's ideas, right? Like, part of repairing lineages of mentorship and repairing with mentorship is also bringing honor to the lineages of our own knowledge and bringing honor to the lineages of our own transformational processes, and like honoring our teachers, honoring our mentors being something that's just built into the integrity of our own pathway. I feel like the scarcity within not naming your sources or like not honoring your mentors this is part of what we're repairing here. And it can be very scary to share wisdom if there's like a sense of like, what if this person's going to take and steal my ideas and like become famous from the brilliant idea I had, And of course, like, this actually does happen. I can't stop thinking about this post I saw the other day. I had heard about this book, like Let Them, with teenagers or something. I haven't read it. I don't know the name of the author. I've never seen the cover. I don't know the full title. But it was showing how a poet had like published a poem called like Let Them. And then this influencer gave the date of the influencer announcing to her community, like, I found this poem and it's so amazing. And then within a few years, she's like copyrighted the title Let Them with her book. So there's this like lineage of like, thank you, poet. Now I'm going to go quote unquote capitalize on that, right? So like, there's intelligence why we would be afraid. Like, this actually does happen, And also, like, in the world that we live in now, like, there are these fine lines between, like, whoa, where the, like, spiritual community just suddenly slips into this very right-wing MAGA way of seeing the world. Like, wait, what just happened? Like, oh, I am not supposed to be following this person. Oh, gosh, I read you wrong. Okay, and like that feeling of like, who's actually right wing, and I just didn't know, like compassion for all of us that sometimes like there's like agreement, there's agreement and then there's not agreement. There's agreement, not agreeing anymore. Slipping out of this space. See ya. And also like acknowledging that at some level, repair culturally like wants some level of being able to see where we do agree, even if we don't agree. Like, do we really have to agree on everything? Well, we don't, but we are in charge of who we let into our ear. You know, we are in charge of letting something into our frequency or letting something into our space. And like how much agreement, disagreement, paradox or contradiction are we comfortable with? And I actually think we just are different around that in different times of life. Like, we may be able to grow like a large threshold for contradiction of like, I see you as a human in these ways and we agree with these things. And I see you as a human, but I do not agree with you. And like, how much capacity does one have for those contradictions? Because if we're not going to dehumanize each other, we need to be able to see the human who has these disagreements with us. And so like navigating these corridors is complicated and it's hard. And sometimes we don't know what to do. And sometimes we don't know what to do until we know what to do, you know? And what all of this is requiring of us, I feel, is that we get stronger in our own integrity and like stronger in our own self-trust and stronger in our own sovereignty. Because the person next to you, who's your dear friend, may have just different thresholds around that. And they may even judge you for your thresholds. And it's just like, so should I collapse my thresholds because it makes you uncomfortable with being friends with me? Like we are in these difficult spots right now as human beings on the planet Earth here in 2025, where these angles needed in us for containment, like learning how to become more angular without isolating ourselves, you know? And I think that here as Saturn's at the end of Pisces, like I've been saying since my Saturn and Pisces episode 3 years ago, to hold the infinite in both hands. You cannot hold the infinite in both hands without limiting it somehow. Pretty proud of that episode, March 2022. Enjoy. The contours of the infinite is like what was like my theme for Saturn and Pisces, you know? So on the threshold of Saturn moving into Aries, you know, really Aries being that part of you that's like out in front, you know, trusting yourself, trusting that like that inner knowing that like, I want to go, so I'm going to go. It's a real strong sense of self-trust with Aries because it's not going to be logical why we're already going. We're like already going before the brain has thought about it because it's fire, not air. It's the air piece that's like, whoa, wait a minute though. But Saturn and Aries, like what is this containment? What is the containment and the sovereignty that could be the most supportive to us so that we can feel fortified in the self-trust of our own authority on what we move on, you know? And that is a real power fortification, you know, and it's not going to look like other people because Aries is one of 12 signs. We have other signs that can help us as ways of being to understand our interconnectedness. Aries is really important for helping us know like that this is coming from me. Like this direction is coming from me. This thing I'm ready to move on is coming from inside of me. And like what containment could support me in feeling fortified in that sovereignty so that I don't waver in the face of someone else's disagreement, you know? Because those disagreements are going to come up. And so this is where it's so important to me in mentorship spaces that it feel like a space of like deep generosity of wisdom sharing, while also being a place where you are free to disagree. Like you're free to be like, thanks. And like, that's not an affinity with me, or that sounds like something that worked really well for you, but I can just feel in my body that that's not going to be the pace or the path for me. Does that mean that because the mentor didn't offer you just the thing for you in that moment, that it was like a waste of your money or you never should have invested? I would say hell no, because what just happened there was your own self-fortification, you know? Success in a mentorship space cannot be measured by how much you agree with your mentor. I just really want that to land. Which means you have to have a mentor that's okay with you disagreeing with them and you taking your own way. Because this, to me, that's the success of a mentorship space, is that you become more fortified in yourself. You become more fortified in your own way. Some of the wisdom that came through may be absolutely resonant with your system, and the other helps you through disagreement and through dissonance recognize where you are and where you are not. And sometimes you will not be where your mentor is. In this case, me. And like, I'm doing my own thing to, at a human level, have containment for the sovereignty of the group. Like, I'm holding it down for myself so that you are where you are. And like the hard part here can be where like we sweetly would like someone to just tell us what to do sometimes, you know? It would be really nice if someone could like absolutely guarantee that that risk is going to have certain results, you know? But as mystics, that's just not an affinity, you know? Like, cause like what? There are no guarantees. You know, it's to me out of alignment to pretend that I have the answers for every single human being, because I don't even have all the answers for myself. I'm on a mystical path. I can feel the energy that's here. I can feel the yes and no in my body. I can see the big vision. I can hear things from my guides and have real clear direction from my tarot cards. And also, my whole career has been built out of me not knowing what I'm doing. And I'm very open about that. So when you choose me as your mentor, you're kind of entering, I would say, like a psychedelic experience. Yeah. I mean, you are. Because the number one thing that I hear from my containers is a thing that you experience in psychedelic experiences, which is, I did not get what I thought I wanted, but I got what I needed, you know? And so, like, the medicine that's in my spaces is there, but it also will be like often an experience with your egoic pictures about what has to be the outcome of this investment, you know? And it's a loving space to go through that always. There will be so much compassion for that. But what comes through in the end as you roll through the like, oh, wait, what is this? You know? That like, I can't not hear that as the constant refrain in my containers. What gets revealed is like this thing under the surface that is the most powerful thing for you to move forward with. Because it's a waste of energy to have a goal when there are other parts of you that would like to be tended to, you know, before you start on that pathway, or as you walk that pathway. For me, the entrepreneurial pathway is a healing pathway, because as I encounter myself in the world, and as the world encounters me back, I am constantly in confrontation with distortions about my vision, ways that I'm trying to control, ways I'm trying to get safe, ways I'm trying to bypass, like looking at something I don't want to look at. This is happening to me all the time. This happens to me constantly. But that process always yields like treasure, and that treasure becomes what I want to talk about. And then what I want to talk about, it begins to become wisdom. And then that wisdom becomes very impactful as it moves through the world. And so I trust in this spiralic experience that is a very psychedelic experience, that is being an entrepreneur, mystic, artist, erotic being, part alien in a human body, out here doing this, So to me, the vulnerability of mentorship is tied to allowing yourself to receive witnessing, allowing yourself to receive celebration, allowing yourself to receive attunement, allowing yourself to receive compassion, allowing yourself to receive the nurturance that is wisdom. And those are the things that I feel like want to be in my mentorship spaces. And so one of the most vulnerable things about being one of my mentees is going to just begin with the allowing yourself to receive, like allowing yourself to drink that. That attunement, the witnessing, the wisdom, the celebration. And in Underdog to Diva, you get to receive that very vulnerably from your colleagues. And so there's this level of vulnerability there where it's like, who are these other people going to be? What's it going to be like to be with all these other people? Am I going to like them? Am I going to want to learn from them? Am I going to want to be around them? Am I going to care about the things they care about? Like, that's vulnerable, especially, when you really value your time, and you value your attention, and you value what you give your ear to. Like, it's a vulnerable thing to say yes to this, because that's an unknown until you get inside. For those of y'all who know the different types of humans that I bring in, it's maybe less vulnerable. You can maybe trust it more because you're like, well, I don't know who these people are going to be, but I have met such amazing people in other spaces that Britain has. I just trust this, But for some of y'all, it can be a brand new trust leap. And I honor that, and I know it. And I also have to step back and just allow time to show how amazing the group frequency is. And aren't we glad that we're all here together? Because I can't control how you feel about your colleagues, So I don't like to force bonding or force relationships, because that's just not congruent, with me. It has to just unfurl. And I like this particular mentorship space, Underdog to Diva, because there's a real openness there to like how much you want to make this about bonding. Like, you really can, or you can completely just be on like more of a hermit journey with this experience. And I like that being however you want it to be. so that there's not like a group shame around how anybody wants to be in the space. So mentorship is very vulnerable for these reasons. And then there's the vulnerability of like your relationship to me and not knowing what the future holds, and not knowing if like, what if you let me in and then you find out something about me later, or I do something down the line and you're like, oh no, I don't like Britton anymore. Like, let's be honest. There have been people who've left my spaces. Like, that's going to be part of the grief that I let into my life. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. But mentors do, like, this is part of the vulnerability of being a mentor, is that if you fall off a pedestal, or if you are misunderstood, or there's something that happens, there's like a rupture, and you can't control what someone wants regarding repair, or if you want to walk away and just not engage anymore, you can't control how that person understands that and then how they talk about it to others. It's like, it's vulnerable being human beings. And so when you come into mentorship with me, I know what you're bringing to this. Like the vulnerability of that trust. Like, is Britton who she says she is? And then what I would counsel you back, if you're interested in mentorship in this moment, which I assume you are, because Moon to Moon is basically like free mentoring. I would say, you ready for this? That the more you are fortified in your own self-trust, the more you are fortified in your own authority, the more you fortify your own agency, the more you are fortified in your own power, the more you can allow your mentor to be a wise human being having a human experience on their path, who doesn't know all the answers and will not have 100% all the suggestions work for you. You take what you like and you leave the rest, and you know that you're allowed to do that, and that you're not responsible for helping me feel good about myself, me the mentor, by like championing me or doing everything that I suggest or telling me how amazing I am. Like, the more you're in your own authority, the more you know that like, I'm coming here to receive wisdom. And sometimes what I will receive is my own knowing about what I don't want, and that this is a space where I can do that. I don't know how this investment will clothe itself in new form. That's what investments are. Your money, your attention is clothing itself in new form. You don't know how it will come back to you at the beginning, but if you trust yourself and your focus is on what I'm emphasizing here, which is growing your own self-trust, that's what unshaming is. Unshaming is about growing your own self-trust, giving yourself compassion to stop working on yourself, quote unquote, to cultivate practices with your different parts who are in pain from the past and who want your attention. That helps you cultivate a vaster sense of self. Unshaming is about learning that you're the one that gives yourself permission, And so in any mentorship space, but certainly in my mentorship spaces, the investment goes more and more and more. It goes far, it catapults you the more you trust in it. But it's not because you're trusting that I'm going to give you power. It's because you're trusting that I'm going to give you wisdom that you can take or leave in your power, that being in this expansive frequency is going to take you places that you are actually the one taking yourself, and that you trust yourself to do that. For me, I like the name Underdog to Diva, even though it is such a cringy name. And I probably lose a lot of opportunities to exchange money with folks because of this cringy name. It's a filter. It's like you have to have a sense of humor. You have to be able to welcome in paradox. You have to be able to take in nuance. And you have to be able to hear me, that this is not a pipeline. This is an infinity loop between the human parts of you who might be having an underdog experience any given way along the path, and the parts of you that are always diva, as in goddess, as in divine, a divine being among divine beings, sitting inside that throne of yourself, the throne of your divinity. From within the throne of your divinity, no one can call you a failure. There's no failing. You cannot be abandoned from that place. And so the more you're in that, you practice being there and seeing reality from like, yep, I'm having a human experience right now, but I also can access my divinity to help me hold this. The more you are a person of capacity to show up to whatever it is that you're called to steward, whatever it is you're called to hold, to create, to lead. So Underdog to Diva has 12 sign transmissions, Aries through Pisces, where I speak about the framework through the lens of that sign, and like how Aries can support you in being a divine being among divine beings in the marketplace, where you're participating in your gifts and exchanging them for money with other humans. And that's like constantly repeated. And each sign transmission is a different invitation to be supported by that sign, to be supported by the planet, connected to that sign. So you can connect at a somatic level to the part of you that is that sign, that is ready to be vigorously participating with your gifts and exchanging. Now, I'll tell you, if you're thinking about Underdog to Diva, that people come in with a range. You know, some come in not knowing even why they're there. I think there's like a very mysterious thing happening where they want to be in company with this group and with me inside this frequency. I'm not asking any questions on arrival. There's no application for this one. So I'm not double checking. Like, do you already have a business? Like, I'm not checking, because some people just need to come in mysteriously. Some are like at the very beginning of exchanging and navigating the marketplace with their gifts. And some like fully have a business and they're like ready to go. They just want to grow it. They want more opportunities. They want more audacity. They want to be more risky with what they're putting out there. Why? Because they want to put it out there from the vulnerability of it being a real me place kind of thing. Me as in you. It's vulnerable to be you, you know? It's vulnerable to participate from a me place. What I mean is like to really speak and act and choose and live from yourself, right? That's the sovereignty. That's the containment. Like, I just want to be myself, that feeling, you know? But it takes a lot of bravery to hold that because of conditioning and because of scarcity. So maybe that's why they're coming in. Maybe someone's coming in with a huge business, but they want to pivot in a big way. And maybe that big way is like becoming more visibly mystical, becoming more visibly magical, and feeling afraid that like, what if my audience doesn't want to go with me? What if they're not interested in this new place? And then what if I lose, quote unquote, all my quote unquote people? And to me, that's moving into an underdog scenario where like you are always an underdog when you're new at something. You're an underdog when you're new at a threshold, when you're a puppy at it, when you just like, I don't have proof that this is a winner. That's underdog. That's what an underdog is. So we're always in that though. We're always in new thresholds. So I don't really care like where somebody is in their business. I don't even care if they're in a quote unquote magical business. As long as what I presume is that they like my magical talk. They like my magical language. They like the magical thing being really open. And that they know that like they want a lot of that infusing their business, infusing their work. Excuse me. I feel a little tickle, which is probably my throat telling me to stop talking. So, yeah, that is going to begin real soon here. If you're listening to this, you may have already missed the doors. But if you listen right away, we start Tuesday, May 27th through November 11th. The doors will not open again until November, if I do it again. And that is like, it's a slow drip mentorship is what it is. It's just like the return again and again to that vulnerability, which as powerful and amazing as my teachings were, my teachings are for like mystics making money, they're not asking you to be in vulnerability, you know? You're receiving the teachings and you do whatever you want, you know? You don't get to practice vulnerability. If you want to practice vulnerability, come to one of my longer form courses where you are opening up to that, like Underdog to Diva. And then Witch Sister is really for someone who like, this is sister, like that's vulnerable. A lot of us have sibling wounds. It is like really, we are deep colleagues here. And this is someone who is like very big into catapulting themselves by investing in themselves. Like this is someone who understands how magical money can get when you're at that kind of momentum. And when you invest in yourself, how it just like slingshots you like really fast. And now you've got this extra momentum that it flows right back to you. You know that, you practice it, you're living it. And it's for individuals who really trust that walking next to me, Witch Sister feels very like we're like in a forest path or a cliff path together. And like, I'm not doing anything for you. Like, you know, you're in your authority. You know, you're in your power. You have a ton of practice in this. So you get that it is so amazing to be supported. Like just having that person near you is like energetically, emotionally, psychically so empowering and just feels really good. It feels more fun than doing it alone. And you know it's going to take you to these new places of expansiveness and catapult you on the timeline that you already know that you're on. You already know you're on it. So that's really who Witch Sister is for, which is a whole nother powerful thing. That is my pleasure to offer for people who are really walking that leadership threshold, like big edge walkers, you know? All of my containers are designed to grow the skill set around that and growing the capacity to be someone who trusts this. Yeah, I feel like that is complete. Any of y'all Witch Sister which sister present, which sister futures out there. Would love to hear from you, even just to let me know, like, you got your eye on it, you're thinking about it. It would feel like a really fun wink to receive, so feel free to let me know. And Underdog to Diva mentees, thinking about coming in. I can't wait to be in this space with you. I hope that this episode supported you in really like seeing things more clearly because they were named, and helping you to fortify your trust in this yes. It is such an honor. Like every single time I meet with Underdog to Diva, I just leave those rooms like, oh my God, wow. Because it's just so impactful to be with big-hearted, wise human beings, open to being real with their experience and being able to be witnessed in that vulnerability, and being able to be in that vulnerable place of like, I would like to receive your wisdom, Britton, like what comes up for you, so that I can just share with you what comes up, take it or leave it, and it's a joy for me. It's a joy for me, and I feel so aligned in it because I know that like it leaves my mouth very generously, and it's yours now. Like, you do whatever you want with it, I don't want to follow people around wondering what they do with my wisdom. That sounds really exhausting, So, yeah. Thank you so much. If you've never left a review, speaking of like ways we could contract together, if you've never left a review and you love Moon to Moon, please, please, please consider doing that now. It's super helpful. I'm almost to 100 reviews. It would be so fun to come into 100 reviews in the next month. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing that. I know that things like that can sometimes I can feel a lot of resistance to doing it myself. So I really appreciate it when people take the time to do it. Thank you, and wishing you all the best. Happy Gemini season.